Hey comrades, hope everyone's doing great. We're here to talk about the what is it called? It's like Bunny X777 or CoinRush. No, I think it's Bunny X777, which is the event that introduces the Bunny twins from CoinRush, who at the time when they released were like the best meta units in the game. This is like all the way back, obviously, and like within that first year, like we just passed like the half anniversary. So at the time you would have Dorothy most likely. She was the best pilgrim at the time. And then Blanc and Noir. But before we get to them, we're going to review Infinity Rail since we got introduced to them in the previous story, a number 13 comeback, which we went through the story of that last week. So now let's get into it with the head of Infinity Rail, Diesel. So one day we're headed home and we're extremely tired. So we lay down on a bench, just, whatever, by like a train pickup area and go for a rest. Diesel sees us and comes over and starts mothering us, and we pass out. We get woken up a little bit later because there's some extremely bad singing, obviously Diesel, and she's singing about strawberry candy and stuff, which is kind of adorable. Some nearby kids mention her singing was bad as well. She then gives the kids candy and they like apologize and then leave. She tells us as we get up, we're like super grumpy because we've just been like exhausted with all the bullshit and work and Nikkes and killing, slaughtering raptures on the surface and all that. And she giggles and says that we're very cute when we're grumpy. At that point, she helps us get back to our home. The next day we wake up to Ainz and Neon arguing about some news report. Apparently there's a memorial service to the train that got attacked by terrorists all those years ago, and that killed a bunch of people. And it killed about 500 citizens. And the attack was done by Heavenly Ascension, which we've vaguely heard of Heavenly Ascension. They're like the largest terrorist group in the Arc/Outer Rim. And we've had, several interactions around them, but kind of exotic, which is Crow, Viper, and Jackal kind of deal with that issue for the most part. Anyway, and then they talk about how they want to go. They mention that Infinity Rail will be there for sure because they were originally formed after the terrorists attacked to protect the train stations within the Arc, so nothing like that would ever happen again. So we head over there with them. We're looking around for Diesel, and we find Solian instead. She tells us that Diesel and Brid are fighting again, and that she can't, it's like, I can't even, and then she walks off. We then skip over to their argument, and it's about Diesel attending the memorial. Apparently she never has, because it's too traumatic. Diesel makes some excuses. Brid tells her that they were all there and it was hard, and that no one knows that she's a Nikke, which is kind of like private-y. So at that point, Diesel's like, all right, I'll go. And then Brid leaves. We then find Diesel and offer to take her on a date to make up for her taking care of us yesterday. She agrees, and we go out, play park rangers with some kids. We get to play as the elevator, which means we just lift up kids and put them back down. And we mentioned that she was super great with kids. And she talks about how she had a little brother who died in the attack that killed her, which she was killed in this train attack, which we find out here. And kind of all the girls... Not all the girls. Brid's Bond story doesn't talk about this. Solian's Bond story talks about this a little bit as well. But this comes up. It's important to understand for the story later on. So pay attention. Anyway, on the day that the attack occurred, they had a whole day planned. They were going to get an autograph, which included all these activities, including getting an autograph from Anderson, who's his favorite commander. Okay. And then she mentions that the commander, us, reminds her of her brother because we seem to be about the same age that he was. Or that he would be if he had not been killed. And then at some point she's gets embarrassed and asks us if we call her Big Sis, and we're like, no, that's weird. And then but then later we're like, oh, okay, fine, Big Sis. And then she gets super surprised and excited by this when we finally have a change of heart. She tells us as we go about her date that she's still not over her brother's death, and that she purposely avoids the memorial. But this time she's dedicated to going through with it, because normally she'll just pretend to be asleep through it and not go, and then no one kind of gives her a hard time. And she's like, I'm going. And then we find out later that she did not go. She slept through it. So we head over there after she slept through the memorial to wake her up, and we end up having to call her a Big Sis to get her to wake up, and it's time for another date. So we replicate the day that she was supposed to have with her little brother, the day he died. So we do everything. We go get candy and go to the arcade, and then we get an autograph from Anderson, who's like, the fuck? Then at some point she breaks down crying, and she says, okay, I'm ready to visit memorial. So we go and check out her brother's memorial, and she gives them all the stuff that they were going to get on the date before, because they were going to go on a little play date and have a whole day to themselves. And the first thing was get on the train, and then Heavenly Ascension destroyed it. And then obviously she became a Nikke to protect the rail system. I think it's it's like AXR when it's on the surface, and then I can't remember what it's called. It's something different when it's in the arc. So she gives him all this stuff, and then she prays. And then after doing all that, she says she doesn't want us calling her big sister anymore, because she blushes and has like feelings for us. So she if we're like her little brother, she can't smooch us. And so we're like, okay, and then we smooch, and then we talk a bit more, and then we get another smooch, and then we promise to continue to be with her, and she hugs us. And then we sit and like watch the sunrise, which ends her Bond story. Oh, it's so sweet and cute. But Diesel is one of our original characters who had a favorite item, and at the time of the favorite item for her, she was pretty worthless. And then she got the favorite item, and she was decent, especially Elysian. Elysian, as of now, they might be the strongest, but that's because they got Rappy Red Hood, which is the best character in the game, as well as like Treasure Helm, which is fantastic, and then the Pirate Twins, Mast and Anchor, who are also excellent, and then D-Killer Wife, who is one of the best Burst 1 characters. Like it's like her, Leader, Rogue, and now Siren, actually. And then Rappy herself, who can do 1 or 3. Anyway, so they're pretty powerful at this point, but back in the day, like getting Treasure Diesel was like you needed that tier 2 character, because I really didn't have anyone else. There was Maricina, who had some heals, but Diesel would really like plug it away with her machine gun and do some serious damage. Anyway, so we pick up kind of like after her Bond story a little while later. She gets out a toy train. It seems to be somewhat around the holidays, like Christmas. Remember, it doesn't snow in the arc except for like that one event that we had like the first event actually, or the second event. But she's getting out a toy train, and she's playing with it, and then she realizes it's missing a wheel. And so she uses that as an excuse to come see us. And then when she sees us, she reminds us of our last date, which was the date from the Bond story. And she's like, hey, I want to hang out and take care of some stuff and do this train thing. And we're like, cool, let's hang out. And so we head out, and we decide the best course of action, of course, is just go to the toy store to see Belorta and Mika, who run the toy store. And we get there, and they're like, oh, sorry, we don't have any parts. They're completely out of circulation. And it's like, we can get you a new train, like a different train. And she's like, no, there's like a lot of nostalgia about this train. Like most of these favorite item stories, obviously, right? Like they have a lot to do with like, oh, my item that I can no longer get. Like Laplace's DVDs and Drake's Arc Ranger enemy. I can't remember what it was called. Anyway, stuff like that. So they're like, Mika's like, well, you can always try Mighty Tools. They may be able to construct something, right? Like Leader and Senti. And then Diesel doesn't think that's going to be too helpful either, and that they're probably so busy. But we're like, hey, let's go talk to him. Leader and me are like super homies, so maybe we can give that a shot. So we head over there. At first, Leader's like, the fuck you guys doing here? I'm busy. I'm busy as shit. I like run this whole joint. But then after hearing that the train is a memento from like her dead brother, Leader's like, no, I'm going to help. I insist. And so she asks about the rails that come with the train set, because apparently there's like a rail set about the train goes on, and then Diesel admits that she never uses them because it makes her feel bad. But she doesn't go into it too much right now. She just like shrugs it off, and then Leader fixes the train wheel perfectly. And as we're walking away, this time we press on Diesel to give us information about like what's going on. She explains that this train set was a gift she was going to give to her brother for like Christmas or whatever, and she set it up after becoming a Nikke with the intent to play with it, but she never used the rail system. And she talks about how it's the reminder of her brother, and that the train being on the rail like triggers too many memories of like the death that killed her brother. It killed her, to be honest, and that she's not really been able to talk about any of this stuff with anyone else, because she's afraid of having a traumatic reaction. And we're like, hey, it's just us. There's no one else here. And then she has an idea, and she's like, well, hey, come watch me play with this train. And so we head over to like the outpost station, because it's like a big rail set. So we set up the whole thing, set up the track. And then right as she's about to put the train on the rail to use it to kind of like work through her trauma, she freezes. We then talk to her about her trauma and kind of like help her kind of like understand what's going on and what's happening, and to kind of move past it, and how reenacting the trauma could be very hard for her, because it could cause panic attacks and cause stuff. But we're here for her, and we're going to hold her and make sure she's okay and take care of her, which is like fucking boss. That's the way to do it. Anyway, so we encourage her some more, and finally she puts the train down and runs it, and then nothing happens. She talks about, as in she doesn't have a panic attack, doesn't freak out, nothing like that. And then she talks about, if this had happened on that day, then her life would be completely different, because like she wouldn't be dead, her brother would be around, she wouldn't be in Nikke, all that stuff. And she thanks us, and we talk about getting together and playing with the train set again someday and enjoying time with her. which wraps up her favorite story, or favorite item story. Next up is Soline. Soline's the diminutive Nikke and Infinity Rail. And so one day we're just visiting the station, and we see Soline there, and she's been tasked with cleanup duty because she like fucked something up, and so she stopped a train because someone was like, "Oh, I gotta catch a train," and she thought it was an emergency, and it wasn't an emergency. That lady could have just fucking waited, and it caused all these problems. And so she gets like, "Okay, you're not in charge of this anymore, but you gotta work and you gotta clean and do all this stuff." And so we give her some candles to cheer her up. She then gets mad, or candies. Sorry, we give her some candies to cheer her up, and then she gets super mad, but she takes the candies anyway because she's kind of immature in that way. And then she swears that everyone's going to see how good she is and that we'll see how good she is, and that then she uses oil on the floor to get the whole thing to shine. But of course that causes a problem because if the floor glistens and it looks great, but then anyone who steps on it fucking slips and falls or whatever, and so she gets like an official suspension from Infinity Rail. Like she's not allowed to work. She needs to like think about what she's done for like a week. And then she's like rah, 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 rah. And then as she's walking out the door, she also slips on the oil, which is hilarious, of course. So what ends up happening is, of course, that Soline kicks it at our place, and she's super bothered. It's like a few days have gone by that she hasn't gotten a return, or hasn't gotten word on when she's allowed to return to work or anything. And we convince her to like chill out and go on a date with us to the mall. First she's like, "No, I don't want to relax. I gotta do whatever, something. But we go and she has a blast, and she's like, "Man, I might need some more rest and relaxation after all this." And then some time goes by after our date, and she comes in and she's complaining. All the rest and relaxation hasn't helped. She hasn't become more professional or anything. And she points to this teddy bear that we won for her on our date. And she tells us she was walking around with it, and someone's like, "Oh, little girl, you're looking for your parents or whatever?" And she like flipped out because she's not a little girl, obviously. But hilariously, the whole time she's complaining about this stuff, we're just like feeding her candy while she like lays on our lap. And she's like, "I need to do appearance." And we're like, "Hey man, you can't, that's not how this works. Like obviously when you became a Nikke, you chose this form for whatever reason, and that's how you're gonna look forever." And she's like, "Yeah, you're right. But I want to do adult stuff, like drink coffee." And so we take her to a cafe, and she wants to do it because Brid always drinks coffee, and she's like the mama bear of like the squad. But she goes and she drinks it, and she's like, "Oh, this is awful. I hate this. It's disgusting." So she gets disappointed in herself and leaves. Later on, Soline has a new idea. We're going to go to the surface. We're going to go on a retrieval mission, just me and her. And so we head to the location of the pickup, and then the building collapses. And we wake up, and we're okay. And Saline's alive too, but her leg's broken. And she starts freaking out until we rescue her and carry her out. Later at the hospital, Delta's yelling at us for going on like an unauthorized mission, essentially, or just going with just us and Soline. And we're unprepared, and then we gotta stop trying to carry Nikkes around because fucking Nikkes are like giant machines, and even like Soline, who's very diminutive, is like hundreds of pounds, and so we could fuck up our back if we do it too much. And then she leaves, and then Soline wakes up and confesses that why she has to work is because she hates feeling useless. And then she tells this like really sad story, and that when she was a human and she was waiting on the train, terrorists attacked the train station, blew up the whole thing, and then she was caught. Like, so she was alive. The attack didn't initially kill her, but it like crushed her legs, and she was bleeding out, and she was like begging for someone to help her, and all these people were just standing around looking at her, and they started calling her like useless. It's like, you're so useless, something, and then so she died. Golly, it's dark. Anyway, so she never wants to feel like she's useless again, so clearly she's got a lot of trauma around that. And then we talked about we're always going to be there for her, and she's never going to be worthless, and that she can rely on others. She can rely on us, and then she gets very grateful. She recovers, obviously, because she's a Nikke, and that happens. And so then we go on another date to the mall, and this time she gets a matching bear to give to us. So we gave her a bear, and then she gave us a bear. Oh, precious. And she implies that she wants like an adult relationship with us. And at that point, she leaps up on our lap, which causes us to hit her head and get knocked out. So back at the hospital, when we wake up, she apologizes. And then she gets a call, and it's time to go back to work. She's super excited about that. And so later on, we visit her at work, and she talks about going on more dates with us, and then kind of waffles a little bit, not like, she like looks away embarrassed thinking about something. And then she's like, I want to have an adult relationship with you with smooches, but I also like it when you spoil me like a child by feeding me candies and stuff. And then she's like, well, I want both. And then she opens her mouth, indicating that she wants like sexual pleasure in the form of us feeding her candies. Which wraps up her Bond story. Next up is Brid. So Soline comes to us to complain. Brid is a workaholic. It makes Soline look lazy. She doesn't like that. Plus, Brid just needs to take a break. So we go talk to Brid. She is like, "No go, I'm not going to take a break." Go fuck yourself. And as we head out the door, Diesel mentions that Brid has been working like nonstop, that she goes from like work thing to work thing to work thing. And she, even though Diesel is like in charge of the squad and she orders Brid to take breaks, she still refuses to do it. But that Brid, when she does take breaks, because she actually does need to sleep, so she should have a mind switch, she always stops in like this one waiting area to get some coffee from like a coffee vending machine, which is like a big deal in like Korea and Japan. These things are all over the place. Anyway, so then we go wait there, and we wait there, and we wait there, and we wait there. Eventually we kind of pass out after 12 hours. And Brid, when she comes in, she checks on us, and then she hears that our stomach's growling, and she's like, all right, let's go eat. And we don't go out to eat anywhere. She just takes us to her office where there's like more vending machines, like Splendid and stuff. And then she talks about how she has a perfect work-life balance. She gets home, she sleeps for 2 hours, she has no hobbies, no other things, and she works 22 hours a day. And we're like, the fuck? That's not a perfect balance. That's awful. And she's like, no, I loved it. And we talk about hobbies. I don't have any. There's nothing to do. And it's like, well, you should develop some. You should do something else. Expand your whatever. And she's like, well, like what? And it's like, well, you like coffee, so maybe we should go on a coffee tasting adventure. But we don't go on like a coffee tasting adventures and we go to like the Maid Cafe and like Cafe Sweetie. Nope, we go to vending machines around the train stations. And so we convince her that every night for about an hour that we're going to hang out and go to coffee vending machines and check them out. So this goes on for about 10 days, and Brid's actually having a really good time. Unfortunately, we run into Solene, and unfortunately tells us that Brid seems like exhausted. Like she's just like nodding along with things. She's not her like exuberant self, and that she's really having like a struggle. So apparently all these like coffee breaks have caused her to miss like sleep, because she can give up on sleep, but she can't give up on work because she's insane. And so we head with Celine over to see her, and we find out that she's been moved off a shift because she was having some problem with like driving the train at some point. And because they always do like a prelim check before every, I don't know what to call it, flight, every chalk, every time the train goes out with the new drivers to make sure they're okay and make sure they can defend themselves against like a terrorist attack, which is, if it happens again, right? And so she failed this prelim check. And so she's like, hey, I gotta cancel these coffee dates. I gotta work. Like, I don't have time for this bullshit. And we're like, yeah, that's okay. I understand. Later on, she's after like one of her shifts, she's looking at her tablet. She sees the coffee date is still listed there. She kind of sadly like deletes it. And then Diesel comes up and she's like, hey, I need you to go clean the trains. And Brid is like, well, I was originally supposed to do like paperwork. And Diesel's like, yeah, but I'm in charge and I'm gonna switch. And so Brid is like, kind of gets flummoxed, but she's like, all right, fine. So she heads over there, and we're there, and we're like, hey, we're gonna help you clean the train so you can get a little bit more of a break. And Brid is like, oh, but it's super hard. It all takes all this work. And then we reveal that like we've been training with like Solene and Diesel for like weeks or whatever for a while to like get good enough so that we can help with the train cleaning, because it's incredibly difficult. So we do. And then at the very end, Brid is like, oh, that was you did a satisfactory job. And that really turned me on. So you know what time it is? It's time to fuck! Afterwards, we go get some coffee. While we're getting coffee, we're resting. She's rubbing her head so that we can fall asleep. Later on, we wake up on the train. Yep, she's driving the train with us in her lap. She carried us over here. But the reason why is she had like the night shift train, and we were sleeping, and then we wake up. She's like, she points out the window, and it's like the 5 a.m. and the sun is just rising over the arc. And even though it's like a fake sunrise, she's like, look how beautiful it is. This is what I live for. I love this. And she tells us like what it means for her to be like piloting the train, and how she loves it, and how much it just means so much to her and everything. And then she says, hey, we can hang out from time to time, but not all the time. And we agree. And then we kiss as the sun continues to rise in the background. Oh. All right, so the event for this week, the event number 13, is Bunny X777. So this begins with Mustang announcing a new special event at Coin Rush. Coin Rush is like the casino in the Ark. And that the winner of this event gets a kiss from the Bunny twins. Later on, we're chilling at our place. And then we get super concerned because we're like, wait a second, no Nikkies have burst into my room when I was trying to rest in a while now. It's too peaceful. And then bam, Blanc and Noir burst in. They're the Bunny twins. And they're literal twins who got turned into Nikkes at some point. We never get like a firm confirmation of that whole thing. But they're Nikkes now. And one's like, Blanc obviously is like, she's a more kind of lowly, white-haired white bunny. And then Noir is a super like Ahego, which is like giant everything, breasts and ass and everything, but she's more shy and timid, and she's got darker skin, and she's like the black rabbit, right? Okay, so they're super hot. And as I mentioned before, they were like super meta for a long time until we had my precious Naga and her buddy Tia, and then as time goes on, just kind of like the meta slightly adjusts. I actually feel like Shift Up's done a really good job of not like advancing the meta too much. Like Leader, Naga, like some of these early characters that were good, even though the Bunny twins are still excellent, and you can still like crush a lot of things with them. They're just not like, you're going from like this. They're still like meta, but they're not like the peak of meta like they used to be, right? So maybe someday they'll fall off, but hopefully not for a while. So anyway, they're here because they want us to enter the coin rush contest because they don't want to kiss a stranger. But with us, they're fine with kissing us. And according to their Bond stories, we've already kissed, which the Bond stories seem to have taken place. I don't know. Like the Bond story kissing action does not purely match up with the kissing action in the event because both times in Blanc's Bond story and in here, she mentions that this is like her first kiss or that she's like uncomfortable kissing. And it's like, well, in the Bond story, you kiss a lot. I'll just spoiler alert, I guess. So maybe that happened afterwards, but also in the Bond story mentions it's the first time she kissed anybody, I guess. I think you have an option to not say that, but it is what it is. Anyway, so we're like, hell yeah, we're down for that. So we need to go to Coin Rush, and we talk to Rogue, who's the third member of 777, and you can get her, but in the grand scheme of like the actual real world, when Rogue got released, it was like years later. But she's also excellent. She's still like a meta Burst 1 character. Anyway. So we asked Rogue to help us win so that we can help Blanc and Noir. And she's like, well, I can't. Not because I don't want to, but let me show you. And she flips a coin, grabs it in the air, and it's like, is this heads or tails? And we're like, I don't know. And she's like, neither do I. So there's no way for me to help you with the contest. But if you can get your luck up, that'd be good. And I'll tell you what, if you can guess if the coin is heads or tails, I'll give you a hint. So we guess heads, which I think no matter what you choose, you're going to get you get it correctly. And it's heads, right? Because obviously. And so we get it. And so she tells us the events. One is a one-on-one showdown. One is a treasure hunt. And the last one is a number guessing game. So it's like, okay, so now we can think about how to like raise some of our stats so that we can try to excel at this event. So time to train. So at this point we get like a fun little thing where you can choose between different characters to train different things. So I choose the Nikke's I like better. So day 6 days out, we practice for the one-on-one showdown with Exia by playing video games. Day 4 days out, we go find Mika and we practice the treasure hunting, even though she's never done a treasure hunt before. And then 2 days out, we hit up AYOOOOO, which is not my favorite, but I can't remember what the other one was, and I was like, man. She helps us with the number guessing game by just like running really fast and following her by being quick on her feet, I guess. Anyway, so then it's 1 day out, and we practiced, we've gotten better at everything except dun-dun-dun, luck, right? And then at that point, we're trying to think about how to increase our luck, and Ainz comes in. So we talked to her about it a little bit, and she says, oh, hey, I heard that if you see Blanc and Noir at the same time at Coin Rush, it's like winning the jackpot. Your luck gets super good. And so, and then we remember when they busted into our room, they said they would help us because they're like 2 lucky rabbit's feet. And so we're like, all right, let's go. So the casino's crowded. We spend hours running around looking for them, looking for the bunny twins. We hear people talking about them and stuff. And we're like, oh, where? They're over there? Oh, no, it's just Rupee and Viper. They're dressed up in bunny suits. Wah, wah, wah. So we chat with them for a minute. And then we go find Rogue, and then she's like, oh yeah, the twins are doing a show in like 10 minutes, you can sit here and watch with me, but let's play a game. So we play some game and just like kill time, and it's like, oh, we're trying to guess what card she is, and she gives you some hints or whatever, and I think no matter what you choose, you win. I chose Jack of Spades and I won, so I'm just assuming that's how that goes. Then the show starts, and it's like, hell yeah, luck recharged. So after the show, Rogue takes us over to the backstage. We hear Blanc and Noir like playing patty cake or whatever in their dressing room, poking at each other, and Rogue's like, oh my god, let me go take care of this. So she is in there, and then she comes out and she's like, all right, they're ready to see you now. And we reckon they're like, yay! So we all hold hands and like, we're gonna supercharge our luck. Da da da! And then like, we want to walk you back to your room too. So they walk us all the way back to like the commander's room. And so then the day of the event shows up, and there's the 3 events. The first event is a one-on-one off, and so it's a rock paper scissors game with everybody versus Blanc. And so there you have to win 2 times. So you have 2 chances, and you gotta beat her both times to move on. And so we win the first time. I think, again, you can just choose whatever. I chose rock and then paper, I think. Anyway, it's the first time, and then a guy's like obviously trying to cheat in his head, and then this like sullen looking man who's sketchy as fuck, he's like, hey, that guy cheated. And then Blanc's like, did you cheat? And the guy's like, oh, okay, I'm sorry. And he leaves. And then we do it again, and we win again. And then the sullen man's like, that guy tried to cheat. And Blanc's like, what? And it's us. And she's like, no, I've been watching that guy very carefully. He definitely did not try to cheat. And the guy's like, oh, sorry, my bad. And it's like, we're like, the fuck's wrong with this guy? Anyway, and so then we find out that out of like the hundreds of people or whatever that signed up for this event, only 9 passed the first event. And that moves us to the second event. So the second event is a treasure hunt led by Noir. And so Noir tells everybody that there's 2 items that are the most precious things to her at all, and that if people bring the 2 items to her, then they can move on to the next event. So the next event is only going to have 2 participants. So everyone kind of like rushes off, and we're standing there thinking, we're like, okay, what is the most important thing to Blanc or to Noir? And we're like, oh, it's obviously Blanc. So then we can go find an item that represents Blanc, or we can just fucking find Blanc. And as we like look around the room, we see Blanc like teeheeing behind like a pillar nearby, and we're like, gotcha. And so we run over and grab her, and she's like, Nani desu ka? And we like drag her back over to Noir. And we drag her. We're just like, come on, babe, let's go. And she's like, okie dokie. And so we go, and then Noir's like, yes, Blanc is the most important thing to me. She's the only thing I treasure the most of all. And then the sullen man, who's still sketchy as fuck, walks up, and he has a doll of Blanc. And Nora's like, I'm very concerned. And he's like, what, is this not what you want? And she's like, it is, but that's mine. And he's like, oh yeah, it's a replica of Blanc. She's like, no, that's literally the doll I have of Blanc that I sleep with when she's not around. And he's like, what? And she's like, look, there's stitching right there. It's the same stitching. And he's like, I don't know, I just found it. And the whole thing's like very sketchy. So then Mustang does an interview with the two of us where we're like, we just want to win, and we love the girls and love participating. And the guy's like, I will never let that guy win under any circumstance. And it gets quiet, and Mustang's like, the spirit of competition, I love it. And we're like, we got to keep an eye on this asshole. So then the last game gets introduced, and it's administered by Rogue. There's a machine, and we can stop it 3 times. The numbers that will stop will always be 1 to 10. And then if you go over 21, you lose. If you get exactly 21, you automatically win. And then you're trying to get as close. It's like blackjack. If you're trying to get as close to 21 without going over. So we lose the first round, and then we win the second round by getting exactly 21. And then we notice that the guy keeps doing something in his pocket while we're trying to play this game. And so we mentioned it to Rogue, and she's like, empty your pockets. And there's the Blanc doll. And she's like, it seems kind of sketchy, but if you want, we can tear it apart and look into it. And so we look over at the twins, and they give us like thumbs up, like you got the luck, you got this. And we're like, we're gonna trust our luck. And so on the final throw, we end up getting 3 7s in a row. Victory! And Mustang's like, oh, gas. He's like, oh, I've never seen that before. That's amazing. This is the greatest thing ever. And the guy, he not only loses, but he loses it. And we're like, hey, take that fucking doll out. And he's like, what? And we grab it, and then there's like a transmitter in there, and we're like, you were cheating. And he freaks out, and then he runs, but the security grabs him. And then 777, the squad, which is Rogue, Blanc, and Noir, they demand that he explains himself, or else. So he explains that he snuck a little, so it's like, how did you get the stuff in here? The security here is like super tight. And he's like, well, I'd come in every day with like a couple bits of wire or something in my pocket, like nothing that would alert like security. And I just kept storing it somewhere. Then one day I found this doll just lying around, and I was like, excellent. So then he somehow crafted, like in the bathroom or something, this remote inside the doll, and then hid it where only he could find it so that he could use it this day up. And then he talks about how during the first round he kind of distracted Blanc so that he could get through. So it implies that he cheated during that round but got away with it. And then the second round he just happened to have the doll, and he mentions that these things are all flukes and just like random happenstance. And the girl's like, why did you do this? And he's like, I need a smooch. And they're like, a smooch isn't worth all this. You're going to jail, buddy. And he's like, then he has a real big pity party about how he's been unlucky his whole life. And just like nothing's ever worked out, and he's had all these problems, and we're like, hey man, you're pretty lucky, you got all the way here. And he's like, no, it's just flukes. And the girl's like, no, that's luck, it's not flukes, you're just not looking at it correctly. And then they hold his hand and like, we're gonna charge your luck, and they're like, da da da. And then Mustang's like, this is a very interesting story. And I'm actually extremely impressed, which I am also extremely impressed, that you're able to just like bring bits of wire into this thing and create a device that could like interrupt like the operations of like this like super advanced like casino technology. And he's like, all right, so you still have to pay for your job. Or you still have to pay by going to jail, but when you get out, you're gonna have a job as an electrical engineer here at Casino Rush, at Coin Rush. And the guy's like, "What?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'm actually super impressed." It's like when hackers get caught by the FBI and then they become feds, right? It's the same idea. And he's like, "All right, but let me take you to jail for now, and we'll get that figured out because we have a reputation to uphold. But then after that, we'll hire you." And he's so happy, and he's like, "Oh, my life's finally getting back together. I'm finally gonna have a job, and I'm so thank you." And Mustang's like, "Yeah, let's go." And he's like, "Rogue, take over." So Rogue apologizes to everyone, gives everyone like a bonus, and then he calls us up onto the stage so the twins can give us smoochies on our cheeks, and everyone's like, "Oh, thank God it wasn't a real kiss." So they can have their like simp delusions. And then as we're about to leave, Blanc and Noir grab us, and they're like, no, everyone's gone now. It's time for a real kiss. And they get super nervous because neither of them has kissed anyone before, which again, it's impossible for this event and the Bond story to exist at the same time because at both times Blanc expresses that she's never kissed anyone before. But anyway, they argue about who goes first because Noir is like super embarrassed, so Blanc should go first, but then Blanc gets super embarrassed, and it's super hot, not gonna lie. And then like, you decide. And so I go with Blanc first because that's who I like better. And then Noir squeezes my hand because I'm kissing Blanc too much, and then I kiss her a bunch, and they're super happy and they're super embarrassed. And then later we're like chilling in our room, and Viper and Rupee come in, and they're like, "What's up?" And they're still in their bunny suits, like, "What's this all about?" And they're like, "Oh, Tetra had such a powerful event or successful event that Mustang wants to do more." And we're like, "What do you mean more?" And then Blanc and Noir bust in, and they're like, "Can you handle 4 bunnies at once?" It's like, are we gonna have an orgy? Because we know canonically that Viper and Rupee and Noir have banged the commander. Blanc, I also think so. It doesn't say it as explicitly, but here we go. And that wraps up the event. So now we're going to discuss the bunny twins and their Bond story. So we start with Blanc. The commander is having a pretty bad day. He goes to the maid cafe, gets super spicy salsa, and you know dragons hate dragons hate spicy salsa. I'm sorry, my kids have been reading the Dragons Love Tacos book and the sequel, which if you didn't know, that exists like 1,000 times over the last couple of weeks. Anyway, dragons apparently hate spicy salsa because it gives them tummy troubles. Anyway, so the commander also is a dragon and hates spicy salsa, and it gives him tummy troubles. So the maids, Soda and Coco in specific, instead of putting the ketchup on the omelet ice, they give him spicy salsa, so he gets a big old tummy ache. So he decides to go home and get some milk, and as he's trying to drink his milk, Laplace just like crashes into the room, knocks the milk all over us, spills it, and then nopes out, like crashes through the window. I don't think she even apologized, if I remember correctly. And then Rappy comes in as we're trying to clean that up, and she's like, "Hey, you missed turning in this report, and it's due like right now. Also, you have a meeting later." And we're like, "Good damn." Oh, goodness gracious. So then we're like, all right, I need to go for a walk. And as we're starting to feel slightly better after a little walk, a dog runs up and pees on our foot. And then Biscuit comes and apologizes because she should have been keeping her wraps on this new puppy. He was just so excited to pee on things. And it's like, it's no big deal. And then lastly, we get bumped into, and we're like, Jesus Christ. But it happens to be Blanc. And she's like, hey, pit boss. Because that's what I don't really mention this that much. But all of the Nikkes have like unique things they call us the commander. I mean, the counters pretty much just call us the commander. But everyone else, it's like, you know, love, like cutie, honey, pit boss, trainer, teacher. It's all sorts of crazy things. It's usually related to their specific thing that they do, and like their niche. So right, so she's a casino worker, so pit boss makes sense, right? Okay, Noir does the same thing. And we tell her about our day, and then she takes our hand because it's good luck time. And she tells us part of luck is just having a good attitude and look at things the right way and believing in yourself, and friendship is magic and shit. So anyway, so we go and take a better look at what's happening. So we the first test is we head to the most popular restaurant in all the Ark, and there's this huge line, and we pull a ticket, and we're number 777. And so there's hundreds of people ahead of us, and then dun da da, it's a celebration. The 777th customer gets to skip the line. Hooray! So luck's starting already to turn around. So we go, we have an amazing meal. We ask where Noir is, and we find out that she's practicing the pole dancing for their show and whatnot. But then because we're the 777th customer, we also get a free dessert, and it's a dessert they only make like 10 portions of every single day. So like there's not that many people that even get to try it, and a lot of people are in line, so it's like super rare and whatever. But we get it free, and then Blanc discusses some more how luck is a part of attitude. So as long as we believe we're a winner, we're going to be a winner. Next, as we're wandering around, we find a public raffle, and that essentially... Okay, there's 100 balls, and the lower number of the ball, the better the prize, and you get 3 pools. And then he's like, you two, come here, and he points to us and Blanc, and the first number is 80, want, and then she holds our hand, and then now next ball we pick is 32, and then she kisses us on the cheek, and then we get second place. Hooray, it's a big prize. We don't know what prize, we just get a big prize. Anyway, so it seems like the more intimate we get with Blanc, the better our luck is. So so we decide to have this discussion with Blanc, and she's like, let's experiment. So we go to a game center where they got some gotcha machines, and then she holds our hand, we get the standard figure, we hold her like around the waist and give her like a big hug, and then we get the special figurine, and then we kiss on the lips, which she claims is like the first time she ever kissed anybody on the lips, which again, as I mentioned previously in the event story portion of this video, that is now 2 times she's had the first kiss with the commander. So whatever, go with your heart, with however canon explanation you want for this. Anyway, some people honestly believe that the Bond stories are just like, and even the events are just kind of like mythical, like side stories and like an alternative universe. I don't believe that. I believe they all fit in. Like there's plenty of downtime between like the story missions, to be completely honest, that we could be going around fucking around like with our harem of Nikkes. So yeah, that's what I believe. Anyway, so. Oh, then we get the legendary figure, which is only like 4 of those in the machine, and we got the last one. Super lucky, super. And it's like, all right, time to experiment more with sex, but not quite. So we end up spending the rest of the night. We do experiment more with the intimacy luck theory, but it seems there's just like more smooching and holding and hugging and stuff. And then early in the morning, Blanc is like, tuck her the fuck out. Like she's like laying down on her lap, and then she kind of like passes out completely. So we pick her up and rush her to the hospital, which again is like, she must weigh like 200 pounds. So I don't know how much of a rush we're going with this thing. Even though Blanc is pretty slim, she's like burgeoning right there on like the lowly fetish, to be completely honest. Like she's just like, she's barely over it. She's barely into being like normal girl territory with like, you know, like a B cup breasts, and she's skinny, but she's not like that short. But she's like right there. Like she's no Laplace or Miranda or fucking Leader or like the 25 other like actual lolis in this game, if that's your thing. She's more just kind of like, yeah, she looks kind of like a, you know, like a average. I don't want to say regular or normal because it's, you know, there's plenty of girls with giant breasts and smaller girls and whatnot, but she's kind of like they're in the average range, like a B, C cup, like medium height, like 5-ish, 5'5" range, right? Okay. Korea, it's probably like more like 5, to be honest, since they tend to be a little bit shorter than like Americans at least. Okay, getting back on track. So we rush to the hospital. Mary checks her out. Mary is like, oh yeah, she seems fine. She just needs some rest. And then we think about like what could have caused her to like be exhausted, because we feel fine, and we were running around all night, and she's a Nikke, so there's no reason whatsoever. And we talk about this with Mary a little bit, and she mentions that maybe it's her luck being drawn out, that maybe that kind of like tuckered it out too much because you absorbed too much of her luck, and that like burnt out her like, I don't know, crazy Nikke magic logic thing. Anyway, she leaves, and a bit later Blanc wakes up. As we're kind of like thinking about this, we discussed the theory with her. She mentions that being away from her other half, which is Noir, her twin, might have had some effect on it as well. Like normally she can give luck all day and not have no problems. Maybe because it's just her, she's given like twice as much luck, and so she just wasn't used to it. And then we mentioned that she was about to say something right before she passed out, and she gets super like embarrassed and like, you know, anime girl kind of like, oh, I don't know if I should really say anything, poking her fingers together and blushing and looking away, and then she's like, I want to confess that I love you, and we're like, oh, I love you too, that's super exciting, and they're like, hooray, and she's like, but I want to include Noir in our adventures, and you're like, yeah, we do. Because they share everything. Yeah, boy. Anyway, it's her Bond story. So moving on, we have oh, hold on, sorry about that. I like to cut the recordings. It makes it easier to slap like the correct pictures in the right areas when I'm like putting the videos together. In case you're looking through this, you'll see pictures of like the event over the event section, and then the individual Nikkes in their various poses over the Bond stories. I don't do that with all my videos, like especially some of these like anime videos and stuff, or video game, they're so fucking, they're like 3-4 hours long. Like I'm not gonna sit there and edit for like weeks on end. I just don't give a fuck enough. But with these, it's a super easy thing to do, so I don't mind doing it. Okay, anyway, so we're gonna finish up with Noir's Bond story. So one night Noir is finishing up her dance with Blanc at Coin Rush, and she's getting a lot of adoration. People want to like I want to put a baby in you, shouting that stuff out and stuff. I think someone actually says that to her, Blanc, to be completely honest. But she starts thinking about Eros, which is like romantic love, and this is getting like real Greek, because she talks about philia too, which is not like pedophilia, you pervs. It's philia is actually a term in ancient Greece that means like friendly love. So it's like I have philia towards like my bros because I love them like bros and they're my homies, right? While I have like Eros towards my wife, which means I want to fuck her, right? So that's like the difference. There's 2 other kinds too. I forget. One of them is like family love, which is like what you feel for a child. I'm trying to remember what it's called. And then there's a 4th one, which I don't remember exactly. It's just philia and Eros tend to be the more popular. And then the family one, maybe it's, God, I don't remember. Anyway, you can look it up. If you literally Google it, it should show up in the fucking thing. You can also ask ChatGPT, it'll give you a better explanation than fucking Googling it. I should start just referencing that. Or DeepSeek probably give you the best solution and explain the whole reasoning or whatnot. Anyway, back on track. So she's feeling a lot of stuff, and she's actually talking to us about it later on. And we're like, oh, we love you. And she's like, no, that's philia, or that's friendly love, not romantic love. And we're like, are you sure? And she's like, yes, what I really want is to feel alluring and stuff. And you're like, you're alluring. And she's like, what makes me alluring? And so we discuss her dancing and whatnot, and she's like, well, let's go dance and we can figure this out. So she takes us to their like practice room, which is in the top of this building. It's like the 10th floor of this like 10-story building. And we head into the elevator, and then we like go down to tie her shoe, and then the elevator door opens and we get shoved into her tits, like our face is like pressed into her boobs, which is heaven on earth because she's got massive breasts. She's like the opposite of Blanc, right? She's like an ahigo, which is like a Japanese term for giant-breasted women, who's like, oh yeah, baby boy, and like, you know, getting like super sultry and stuff. But she's very shy and timid. Anyway, so as we're getting like pillowed by her giant breasts, she tells us that like, oh yeah, the rush makes sense. There's like one of the best restaurants in the Arc is on the 9th floor here, and her and Blanc go to it all the time. It's super delicious, but that's probably why they're here. And in fact, it is, because on the 9th floor they all pile off, and they were like, we can breathe. We're like, oh goodness gracious. So then we get to the top floor, and she kind of apologizes for her giant tits and says like, oh, sorry, I've been gaining some weight. And we're like, no, you still look fucking awesome. Oh, at some point, Jan intercepts us, and wants to do something, and we're like, no, we got to focus on this chick right now. And then Jan's like bows and like goes away or whatever. Anyway, so we get to the top floor. And okay, yeah, so Noir wants to dance, but she always dances with Blanc, so it's easier and more comfortable for her to dance with a partner, so she asks us to dance. And we're like, sure, we can help you with that. And since it's pole dancing, like, our uniform does not match, and we can't wear one of the bunny uniforms because they just don't fit. And so she's like, starts rolling up our pants and getting like, trying to adjust the clothes we're already in to help us dance better. And she's getting like real close to our dick. And we're like, okay, that's enough. Let me finish this. In fact, I think she kind of bumped into the dick, if I remember. Anyway, so everyone gets embarrassed because she's like, why, what's wrong? And you're like, I have a penis. And she's like, oh, right. That's embarrassing. I'm sorry. I'm like a Japanese schoolgirl. Anyway. So practice begins, and she mentions like, oh, when you're first learning to pole dance, you know, your thighs are going to burn like fire because you're like sliding down this like metal pole with like your pathetic human skin. And we're like, oh, it should be fine. And it's not. It's like, oh shit, that feels awful. And then she's like, let's try this other thing. And then we do this like spinning thing where we're supposed to be like walking on air, and it's really like involved and takes a lot of muscle mass. And we do that for a while, and then we're just like completely exhausted and sore all over the place. And so she's like, oh, let me help you. And so she gets some ice packs and starts putting them all over her thighs and stuff. And again, she's getting pretty close to her dick again. And we're like, hey, just so you know, you're getting close to my penis. And she backs up, and then she thinks about it. She's like, well, I don't mind if you don't mind. And we're like, hell no, we don't mind, Blanc or Noir. Fuck yeah. It's and so she continues. Dun, dun, dun. Afterwards, we kind of get cleaned back up. We don't have the sex right now. We just kind of like, ooh. Anyway, so she wants to go to this restaurant and show it to us. So we head down there, and immediately she's like talking to like the maitre d', and we get like a table, and they're like, what's your usual? And she's like, you bet, and yada yada. And then she like talks to us about how she feels so shy and how she wishes she could be more charming. And you're like you were very charming. Like, you were talking to all these people and they were loving it, and you're doing great. And she like gets, you know, more embarrassed and shy and whatnot. And she's like, I need some courage. And you're like, why? And it's like, because we're gonna have sex later. So anyway, so she orders some alcohol, and she gets super tipsy on just one glass. So we help her out. And then she mentions that when she feels drawn to someone, she feels like she needs to get more courage, liquid courage. And so she tends to do this because she wants to lower her ambitions. And then we talk about kissing, and then we kiss. Hooray. Later on, Noir, no sex right now, but later on, Noir is sitting around thinking about how she has feelings, but she's concerned about confessing her feelings because she knows that Blanc, her twin, also has feelings for us. And in fact, Blanc like shows up from a date she just went on with us, which is maybe her Bond story, so maybe I should do this Bond story first. Anyway. And then she kind of wants to talk to Blanc about it, but she doesn't. And then Blanc's like, hey, you got to wake up. You got an appointment. And it's like, what's that appointment? Oh, it's with us. I guess it's more of a date, not an appointment. Anyway, so she shows up, and immediately she confesses her feelings, and we're like, oh, we love you too, and want to have the sex. And she's like, all right. And then we kiss. And then she's like, all right, I don't want to stay here because I don't feel comfortable here, but I want to go someplace where I feel comfortable so that we can bang like rabbits. And so we head back to the studio because apparently they have a bed there. Sure, why not? So we do, and the sex commences. Which wraps up her Bond story. Oh, goodness. She's far more selfish than Blanc, clearly, because Blanc wants to share, and Noir is like, no, I just want to go have sex by myself. Anyway, so that's the rabbits. They're the best. And that's the, what is it, Bunny X77 and Infinity Rail as well. So join me next week, and we'll get to chapter 14 of the main story, and then a couple of weeks we'll get to the next event story and some more hilarious Bond stories. And so go ahead, like, share, subscribe, comment, and I will catch you guys later. Bye.